Hello there, Whip here, and welcome back to another mod showcase. And today I'm going to be showing you a mod called the Mobile Base mod, which basically enables you to build tents in Minecraft like this, then save them into a blueprint, then craft them using a special crafting table, and then place them down in your world, and then you can break that tent and move it somewhere else, and all the items and blocks that you put inside of the tent will be saved, so you can move around your whole base effectively, which is why I'm presuming it's called the Mobile Base mod. So the first thing I need to do is show you how you can actually save a tent into a blueprint. Now there are certain specifications that your tent must follow, otherwise it's not going to work. And the first thing is that you need to make sure your tent is facing east, and this just makes it easier for you to actually place down your tent in the future in the correct orientation that you want. Secondly, you're going to need a central fence pillar, like so, and it needs to be in the exact center of your tent, and it needs to connect the roof to the base, like I've got here. And thirdly, when you actually press F3, you can see we've got a X, Y, and Z axis, like so, and you need to actually make sure that the right side of the tent, well the furthest right side of the tent and the furthest left side of the tent are the same amount of blocks from the central pillar, and that's the same with the x-axis. So you can see here the tent is pretty much symmetrical. We've got 3 blocks to the center in the x-axis and then 5 to the center on the y-axis. The z-axis, and then the height really doesn't matter, although make sure it's no taller than 12 blocks, because otherwise it will give you an error. So yeah, make sure the dimensions of the tent don't exceed 12 by 12 by 12, because that's the maximum size for a tent in this mod. But once you've actually made a note of how wide it is and made sure everything's functional, you need to make note of these numbers and then craft a new item called a blank blueprint. And to craft this, you're just going to need some lapis lazuli and some paper, and then you get a blank blueprint. And then once you've actually got your blank blueprint, you just hold it in your hand, right click the central pillar of the tent, and then it should say tent position set. If it gives you an error, then obviously you've done something wrong, so make sure you do it correctly. And then after this, all you need to do is right click on the central pillar again, like so, and it'll ask you to set a name for the tent. And because I'm so imaginative, I'm just going to call it Tent 1. How boring, I know. And next up, you need to input the X, Y, and Z dimensions of the tent. So as you saw earlier, it was 5 from the it was 5 wide. This is not the actual width of the tent. This is half the width of the tent, if it makes sense. And then the X-axis is 3 from the central pillar, and then the Y-axis is how tall it is, which I believe is 6. But there we go. And now you can see we've got the item fully set up. And then, once you've actually got this, you need to craft another item called the Tent Builder. And to craft this, you're just going to need a blueprint and a crafting table. Then just place that down, and then right-click on it, and you can see we've got a Tent Builder item. Now, when you've got this, you just put your tent blueprint in the top slot, like so, and then you can see a 3D representation, or render, of your tent that you've built. And this is where you can check that you've saved it correctly. If you've got a massive chunk missing out of your tent, you've probably done something wrong, and you might want to redo it. Otherwise, you can have the weirdest looking tent ever, which is not a very good thing. And then you've also noticed we've got another 3 slots. We've got a wool slot, a fence slot, and an ender pearl slot. And in this mod, the ender pearls probably act as a currency, so you have to actually put in some ender pearls to actually build this. It's like coins or something. But the first slot, of course, is the wool slot, so I'm just going to put 64 wool in here. And then the second slot is the fence slot, which is for the central pillar of the tent. You're going to need the exact amount of items that this tent is actually made out of to craft the tent item. And then the final slot is the ender pearls, and the ender pearls are calculated, I think it's 10, like the amount of blocks in the tent divided by 10 is the cost in ender pearls. So we're going to put 16 in here. That should be enough for this tent. But anyway, once you've put all the items in, you just press build, and then it will give you a progress bar out of 100, and once it gets to 100, you've actually crafted the tent, but we haven't got there yet. And when you hover over the slot, it tells you how many more wool you're going to need. So it says 64 out of 120, so we just put another 64 wool in, and this should get us to 100% progress. And you can see here, we've got all the stuff, and we've been given the Tent 1 item. And look at that, it's actually represented what it looks like in the game, but just in a smaller version on my hotbar. How brilliant is that? And then once you've actually crafted it, you can take all the stuff out because you're not going to need it anymore. And there we go, we've still got our blueprint, so you can keep crafting these as long as you wanted. And now we've got our tent item. So once you've got your tent item, just go somewhere and place it down like so. And there we go, we've got an identical tent, just one down. Because when you actually place the tent item down, the base is embedded in the ground, which is very useful. Which is why I built the tent a bit higher than usual. Otherwise, when we placed it down, it would have been even further in the ground, which is not very helpful. But yeah, you can see we've got a lovely tent here, and I've just broke it. And I think now, since I just showed you what happened when I broke it, I'm just going to break it and show you the 2 different ways of breaking it. So if you go to the main outer edge of the tent and then break a block, it just drops the tent item like so. And you can also do another method, which is break the central pillar. Now I'm going to show you how these two methods of breaking the tent are completely different and do different things. And to show this, I'm just going to place down a cobblestone block inside of the tent like so. And if I break the outer edge of the tent like so, you can see it drops the tent item and the cobble remains. Let's just break that again. But if we place down the tent and then break the central column when there's cobblestone in it, like so, the cobblestone is actually saved in the tent blueprint. So when I place it down again, the cobble remains inside of the tent, so it can store items in the tent. And this also works with chests. So for example, if I put a chest in the corner here and then fill it with items like so, just some random assortments of wool and a fence, and then break the tent in the central area, it's going to save that chest and its contents. So when I next place down the tent like so, you can see the chest is still in here with all of the items. Now, the really cool use I thought of this is if you made yourself a storage tent and then you filled it with double chests full of your items, and then whenever you wanted to move base location or something, you could just break your tent, move around, and it's basically like a massive chest in your inventory, so you can just place it down on the other end where you actually wanted to go to, and then retrieve all your items again without having to make loads of different journeys back and forwards. And the really neat thing is, it also works with furnaces with items in. So I can place down a furnace, put some coal in and some iron in, and then it's going to start smelting. You can see it's half full, and then if I break the central pillar of the tent, then place it down again, the progress bar is saved. So it's still being smelted, and its state is saved, so you don't lose any progress. And yeah, so that pretty much sums up all the features of this tent. How cool is that? And again, if I break the side of this, the items inside are not like saved. So if I place down this tent again, you can see they're not in here because I broke the tent without actually saving their position. But next up, I need to go back to my start area because I've got two different tents I want to show you, just to show you the possibilities of what you can create with this mod. So we've got a spherical tent and a normal tent. And the normal tent is pretty much the normal design of a tent that you're used to seeing. So you can see we've just got the triangle kind of shape here with the central pillar, and this just gives you an idea of things you can create with it. And we've also got a spherical tent as well, just in case you like spherical things, like so. So there's actually one remaining point that I forgot to mention, and that is you can make tents in different colours. And you can also build the initial tent that you want to make the blueprint out of in different colours as well. So let's just go up to this tent builder, and I've got a blueprint here called set name because I was too lazy to name it anything else. But if I put lime wool instead of white wool in here, you can see the actual render of the tent changes to green, and that means that the tent that you create is going to actually be green instead of white. And if I put all the other components in, like the ender pearls which are required, and the fences, and then press build, it's going to start building the fence. And let's just put some more lime wool in because that's definitely needed. And once we get to 100%, we should get our green set name tent. Yes, and I've also already tested this out earlier because I was seeing if it worked. So if I just place it down here, you can see that we've got a green tent, and this works with any other coloured wool, so I could do it with a pink tent or something. And also, if you built your initial tent out of a different coloured wool, you'd still be able to make a blueprint of it. But when you actually created the blueprint tent item, when you put it in here, it'd already be green and you wouldn't have to put any other coloured wool in. So